$70,000 they made off of these things. $70,000. I'd say they're doing pretty good. Hey guys, welcome to Jasco Goods. I'm sorry, I need like a theme song or something. I don't have nothing. But anyways, in today's video, I found another high profit, easy to make woodworking project that is selling for, you won't believe how much it's selling for. Just stick around. Let's get to building. So my wife has an amazing ability to find woodworking projects that are trending and popular, but also that she really wants. I don't know how she does it. So this is the current situation we have on our counter. Does anybody else eat bananas when they're that brown? Just a side note. We have this basket and we put fruit in there. We put bags of fruit in there to ripen, and we wanted to do something better. So we turned to Etsy to get some ideas for something I could build. Okay guys, if you go on to Etsy and you type in vegetable bin at the top, you will see that they have vegetable bins. But look at the prices of these things. $269. $685.98. That's insane. $498. $186, $119 for this one. This one's, they want $425 for it, $81 for this one, $269. They're asking a lot for these things. But then you got to wonder, well, how are they selling them? Because that's the real test. Are these things selling? $279, and they're just simple. They're not even made from they're made from pine. They're not even fancy. This is $40 for this box, but that's because they engraved on it. And that's what I was trying to tell you. If you put a name on something, and you can get a lot of money for it. Look, there's that one, $685. So you got to wonder, are they selling any of these? I have this app. You used to tell me how many they've sold and how much they made off of it. But now they want you to pay money, as everything else does. They want you to pay a monthly fee to be able to see all that kind of stuff. But you could see, look, they got 194 reviews. So that means they sold at least 194 of something. And then you can see people have sent in pictures. And they got a couple coffins on here. They must sell some coffins. So this is what I'm telling you guys. Go on Etsy, man. Look through what's popular. These vegetable bins are popular right now. So there's something you can jump on. And you don't have to sell them on Etsy. If Etsy's a lot for you, go on Facebook Marketplace. Sell them to people locally in your area. Go look for a local farmer's market. That'd be a great place. Maybe it'll let you set up and put them there. Okay, so I found a way to this other menu in this. This is a different one, but they're selling this one for $545.87, and they've had 129 sales. It doesn't really give me a time frame how long they've been selling them, but if you add up, we'll say 545 times they've had 129 sales. $70,000 they made off of these things. $70,000. I'd say they're doing pretty good. I'm not sure exactly how accurate this app is. This is what I've been using. This is what I used when I used to find stuff to sell on Etsy. Look, even this little gray one, $60. I don't know how they're doing it. This one, it says it's $498. I don't know how they would be selling that for $498. But if you go over all these prices and you get an average price, it's at least $300 you can make off of these. If you do a decent sized one and add some features to it. All right, now that we looked at the prices, let's get to building. First, I had to go to my local big box store and sort through this mess and try to find one straight piece of lumber. Dear Lord, please let this lumber have less curves than my Weight Watchers meeting. So after sorting through wood for about an hour, I remembered something that Al Borland once said. Trying to find straight wood at a big box store is like trying to find a straight man at a dance festival. So I just settled for semi-straight. Then I took the little bit of wood I could find and crop dusted the hardware department in a protest on my way to the cash register. So I ended up getting a 1x12, and I'm just going to cut it down to length. I'm going to put my vegetable bin on top of my counter, and I'm going to have it under my upper cabinet. So I have about 18.5 inches to play with. So the dimensions on my vegetable bin are going to be about 17.5 inches tall by 12 inches wide by 10 inches deep. So I had to rip my two 12-inch side panels down to 10 inches. So this 1x12, you can see has the purple markings. That means I got it on clearance, 80% off. Okay, so the one I got on clearance, you can see it's bowed, and I'm going to use that as the back panel. Okay, so I got all my pieces cut. These are my two side pieces. They are 10 inches wide by 17 inches tall. That one with the big stripe down the middle, that's my back piece. That's 10.5 inches wide by 16.25 inches tall. That right there is my top. I did a 1/2 inch overhang around the sides and the front, nothing on the back though. And that piece is 13 by 10.5 inches. And then last but not least is my bottom piece. And that piece is 10.5 inches by 10 3/4. And then before I assemble everything, I'm just going to sand it up a little bit with 150 grit sandpaper. I'm going to be painting this one, which is I haven't done yet on this channel, I don't think. I don't have to really worry about sanding too much, just knock it down a little bit. And Hulk refuses to hold his sign today for some reason. You going to hold the sign or what? Hulk smash! Oh yeah? You're off the payroll. So I'm going to assemble this thing with pocket hole screws because everybody just loves them for some reason. But before I start drilling holes all willy-nilly into this wood, I want to make sure I mark where I want the pocket holes to be. So I'm going to look over the wood, determine which side I want where and how it's going to go together, and mark it with a piece of tape, and then start drilling my pocket holes. Not that I've ever drilled the pocket holes into the wrong side of wood. This is just precaution. I've never done it before.
You are a bald-faced liar.
Okay, so I was going to start by attaching my base or bottom board to the two sides. On the original plan, they had their base under the bottom. So you could see a lip of wood around it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to stain this or not, and I just thought that would look funny. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. Originally the original one had this bottom board underneath of the sides. So you would have saw end grain underneath on the sides. So I didn't like that. I thought if I stain it, that's not going to look good. If I paint it, it's not a big deal. But if I stain it, I don't want that. So I moved it to the inside. But now I realize the reason they did that was because now I have this, or missing the little corner. Now this isn't going to be, this is, I'm just putting on there for reference, but that's not going to be there. It's going to be like this. The door sits on here like this, and that's what it hinges on. Let me know in the comments, because I really can't decide. I think I'm going to leave it like this just for the sake of finishing the build. So what do you think looks worse? The side grain sticking out of the side like this. Can you even see that? The side grain sticking out of the side like that, or missing the little corner at the bottom right there, and it's sitting like this. So the first thing I did was clamp the bottom and then attach it using the pocket hole screws. Then I put the back in, clamped it in place, and attached that using pocket hole screws. So now I put the top down on my bench and I flip the box upside down on it so I can get my nice even 1/2 inch reveal around it, which you'll find out later that 1/2 inch was a mistake. I didn't account for something. If you can guess what it is, leave it in the comments. Then I attach the top to the box using pocket hole screws. Okay, so we're all assembled. Okay, let me show you where I put all my pocket holes. On the sides, on the inside of the sides of the top to hold the top on. Put 2 on that side, 2 on this side. Pocket holes on the bottom. 2 on each side to hold the sides on the bottom on. And then I put a bunch on the back. I put 3 on one side to hold this side on and 3 on this side to hold this side on. 1 on the top. This might have been a little bit overkill, and then the one on the bottom is probably overkill. Now you might think these are gaps and I'm not a good woodworker, but since this is gonna have vegetables in it, I created those as vents. He's lying! Okay, so the overall height is 16 1/4. 16 1/4, it looks really good, really close. And half of that would be 8 1/8. So that's where I'm gonna put my center mark for my drawer brace. And then that'll give me even spaces for even drawer faces. Then I'm gonna use this. This is to mark the center of things. I'm gonna mark the center of this. I'll mark the center of this side. And I can mark this right on here because it's gonna be covered. I'm gonna use this dowel jig for drilling the dowel. Okay, now I just went way bigger than what I'm doing. I'm gonna have to sand that. For some reason, the first mark I made was off center. I don't know what happened. On both sides. I don't know if I was holding this wrong or what I did. I wish there was a way to clamp this jig to the box so it doesn't move around. So I'm going to clamp this down so it doesn't slide around on me. That way I can hold this. You see, it really, when you're on an edge like this, it really moves a lot. It's easier to hold it on the actual body of the jig than to hold the handle. When you hold the handle, it doesn't seem to give you... I forgot to even switch drill bits. I was using the drill bit for the pocket hole jig. Luckily, it's the same size, 3/8. corner. So normally when using a wood dowel, you would put half into one side of the two things you're attaching and half into the other. Well, half of this wood dowel is 3/4 of an inch. The material I'm using is only 3/4 of an inch. So I have to make sure I go deeper into the box side. And to do that, I'm gonna figure out how much I can go into here because the drill bit I'm using has a point on it also. So I gotta make sure I don't poke through with the point. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna test it on here, get it set up to the right depth, and then whatever's left over is what I'm gonna adjust my stop to for these holes. So this is what was left. Now I just gotta adjust my stop collar to that amount. Guys, on a positive note, I think I just got sponsored by Festool. They sent me an email offering me a lot of money to never mention their tools in my videos. So now I'm going to use this to mark the center of my shelf brace, whatever you want to call this piece. I can't go all the way to the edge because it doesn't work that way. So I got to mark it and then extend the line. I'm using the piece I pre-drilled to adjust the stop collar. So when this bottoms out, I know that's when I need to tighten this. But I can't do it with one hand. This doweling jig works okay for the price. It's got its limitations. As I've said, it's hard to clamp in certain situations, and I probably could have clamped it here, but also you're eyeballing it, so there's a lot of room for error. But it's like $10 for the jig and $40 if you buy it in a kit, so I'll leave you the link. The set I didn't go deep enough. I'm gonna just take a little out. Still not enough. Still not enough. What is wrong with me? So I got about 7 7/16 on that side. Okay, so it's off maybe a 30-second, but I don't think that's gonna hurt anything. I mean, it's barely a 30-second. I don't know if you can see that on the tape. Well, like they used to say when I was building houses, looks good from my house. Oh wait, this is gone in my house. Flexing my Walmart remote. Walmart. So this thing has to hold the weight of the top drawer, and I'm hoping that these dowels will do it. You don't know if you don't try, right? Let me know in the comments if you think that this is going to be enough to hold the weight of that top drawer. I did clamp this, I just didn't record it for some reason. Okay, so the next hurdle I'm trying to figure out is, I stumble on what to call these because they're not really drawers, so I don't want to say drawer, but that's basically what it is, a drawer. So I made this little mock-up drawer to help me figure this out. So the way this is going to work is it's going to hinge down here, and then the drawer will open like this. So if you look up there, I made a line, and that's where the drawer's got to stop because that's where the top drawer is going to be. So that's where this drawer's got to stop. Same with the top one is probably going to be even worse. That's not really enough opened up. I don't know if you can see that. So the only way to fix that is either make that shorter. Ideally, I'd like to come all the way up to here, but you can see that's all the way past. So I either need to make that shorter or I need to cut that piece at an angle so it tapers to in the back, if that makes any sense. So this side piece would be this thick up here and then taper to a skinnier piece as you get to the back. Now, ideally, just making a drawer would be the best solution, you know? But that's not the point of this. The whole charm, I guess, is in them, the hinged drawer and the stuff rolls forward. So in the future, I wouldn't make it as deep maybe make it a little shorter and the drawers would only be maybe, you know, right to there. But then the top is going to be even worse. You can actually see, boom, that's all you're going to get in the top. So I'd have to really 45 that top or shorten it or make the top a drawer and the bottom hinged. Let me know in the comments, and I'm going to try to figure out what I'm going to do. So while I'm trying to figure out that debacle, I'm going to just start making the drawer/door faces, and I'm going to make them shaker style, and I'm going to use a 1x3 as the frame, but instead of a panel in the inside, I'm going to have like a metal mesh. I'm going for like a rustic farmhouse look. You'll see, it's going to be great, I think. I hope. Okay, so all I did was I cut 4 1x3s at 12 inches wide, or long, however you want to say that. That's the width of the box. And then you see what I'm doing here is I'm just stacking my two pieces, figuring out what's left for the two side pieces, and then I'm going to deduct like I would say 1/8 of an inch off of there to give myself a 16th gap all the way around the drawer face, door, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm just repeating those same steps for the top door. In a perfect world, they would have been exactly the same, but in my world, where I make mistakes sometimes, like one time in 84, they were not the same. So one's a little bit bigger than the other, which is fine. So now I'm going to mark them all with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Luckily, I didn't have to go over 10 or I would have had to take off my shoes again. This way, when I'm doweling them, I don't get confused, and I always make sure I'm doweling the right one next to the other one. And there's a certain way you got to do it. I don't know if I can even explain it. So I was going to use this dowel jig to put these drawers together, drawer face / door. So I was thinking I'll find the center of these smaller pieces, but look at where the center is. 2 7/16. So instead, I just might use an arbitrary number and come in from each side that much, just to make it easy. And I think I'm going to pick 1 3/8, an inch and 3/8. Okay, so now I have my marks of the center, or where I want the dowel to go on the smaller pieces. I got to transfer it over to the longer pieces. So I'm just using a speed square to do this. And in theory, I shouldn't even have to do this, because once I drill the dowel in one, you're supposed to be able to use the jig, and I'll show you, to transfer it. But it just makes me feel better to have a mark there so I can see that I have it turned the right way and I'm doing it in the right direction. Okay, so now I clamp the dowel jig to the smaller pieces, and I lined up the hole with the center hole that I made in it. But it's like I said before, you're just eyeballing it, so hopefully I'm dead center. Okay, so my dowels are 1.5 inches, so half of that, 3/4 of an inch. So now I'm drilling down into this each side, 3/4 of an inch. I actually go a little bit more to give yourself space for glue and stuff like that. I always seem to not drill deep enough for some reason. Okay, so now make sure you pay attention to the orientation and placement of your letters, so that you're putting your A to your B and your 1 and to your 2, however you labeled them. I did one with 1s and 2s and the other ones with the alphabet. And then what you're going to do is you put the dowel in the hole you already drilled, and then you slide the jig over the dowel, and that's supposed to keep it lined up perfectly with the hole you're about to drill. And then I'm going to use this clamp to clamp mine together, and then drill your hole, and they should line up perfectly. And that's the reason you really don't need to put a line, because you're actually using the dowel in the hole you've already drilled. I just do it for peace of mind. It's easier to match up. But like I said before, for some reason, I never drill my dowel holes deep enough, and I have to add to it. You see that? But after a little bit more drilling, there you go. They line up pretty good. I'm happy with those results. Okay, so I just repeated that process all the way around, and now it's time to glue and clamp this thing. And honestly, this is a basic drawer, or drawer face, or even a cabinet door. If you learn to do this process, you can build cabinet doors. There's a little bit more to it if you're going to put a panel inside of it, but this is the basic first beginning steps. You get this down, and there's not much more to actually building a cabinet door, especially if you're just building one for your workshop, or in your garage or something like that, just a starter one. These are perfect. I watch a lot of channels, and they have like some generic background drums or guitar playing. Do you think I should have that, or should I just like hum or something? What would you guys prefer? Or just nothing at all, just me talking? That's what I do. I try to talk over it because I don't have any music. But I could hum. I could be like, and then throw a few words in every now and then. Building a drawer. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you prefer. Okay, so here's my solution for the rocking drawers, whatever you want to call those things. I'm not even going to do them. Here's what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to put this lip on the bottom to keep stuff from rolling out. And then I'm going to put this shelf in here on the second. I'm going to put that shelf in there, and it's just going to be a lip there. And then you'll have a door on there, and you'll open the door, and you'll just reach in and get your stuff. You won't have to move anything. I won't have to worry about the weight of everything on here. I may even add another lip. You let me know what you think, if this looks stupid, something like that. That's the solution I came up with. I think it's the easiest, most efficient way to do it. But you guys let me know in the comments. Does it take away from the magic? Is it not as cool as like the drawer pulling out and the stuff rolls forward? Safety warning, you might want to make sure your sander's not turned on before you plug it in. Luckily, I have cat-like reflexes. I think that's why my wife calls me Garfield. Well, my doors are dry, so now it's time to sand them down. Then I cleaned up all the edges of my Turd Polisher 2000, and they look pretty good. Came out pretty good. Okay, so I cut a couple strips of wood that I'm going to use to hold the shelf up. I'm going to nail and glue them in here. They were just some scraps I had. They were some cut off from a long board I cut down, but they're about a ½ an inch thick. They're 10 inches long, and they're about 3/4 of an inch high. And I'm just going to glue and nail them into the side of this. Look at that form. You can tell I eat a lot of hot dogs. I just got that look about me. And then as you can see, I just used a speed square to keep them parallel to the front of the box as I nailed them in. Then I glued and screwed a 1x2 to the top of my shelf, so when you had it sitting in there, you didn't have stuff rolling off. The video is going to cut out short because it was so hot in my garage, my camera overheated and shut off. Right about. Quabam! Top shelf done. Then I used my hot dog making skills to glue and screw another lip on the bottom for the bottom shelf so that stuff doesn't roll off. Look at my workbench when I'm doing a project. Anybody else have this? I got stuff out I didn't even use. So I got this pack of hinges off of Amazon, and they were okay. They're a little cheap. They were much cheaper cash-wise than the ones I can get from my local box store. It was only like a pack of 2, and it was almost the same price as these. I installed my hinges in 1.5 inches from each side. No reason for that. I just picked a number, 1.5 inches, and it sounded good. I used the screw and I pushed it into the center of the hinge hole as centered as I could get, because you don't want to put in the screw off-centered and then it pulls the hinge out of alignment. You could also go through with a punch and push that in the center too if you wanted, but it's just as easy for me to use the screw. Okay, can you see this right here? These hinges are scraping on the ground. I should have raised them up a little higher, but it's not a big deal because I was going to put feet on it anyways. I'm going to have a magnet holding it shut, so I want it so when you pull this open, it doesn't just slide across the counter. These rubber feet to put on, I just get these off of Amazon. If I remember what they are, I'll link it in the description. And I'll link, whatever I use, I link in the description. I got these hinges off of Amazon too, so. To install the bottom hinge, I just clamped the door to the box and then realized halfway through that I had the hinge bent. Did you guys know I was a magician? Look, I just made my neck disappear. Okay, so I should have put something between the door and the lip that it's sitting on before I put the hinges on. Something to give it a little bit of space. Either some playing cards or my Krispy Kreme Donut of the Month membership card. Something like that to keep it from touching when the door is closed. Because like if I go back to paint this later, there's not going to be any room for paint. It's going to hold the door out from closing. If there's any swelling from moisture or anything, it's going to keep the door from closing. So I should have done that, but I didn't. But at least my reveal looks good. Now, when I installed the top door, I did remember to put a piece of paper there. I folded it all up and just stuck it in there. It was like a sticky note. But I did a rookie mistake, and I only put it in the middle. So when I went to install the screws on one side, I kind of pulled down on it a little. And then when I did it on the other side, I kind of pulled down on it a little. And you'll see what results I got because of that in a minute. You can actually see it teetering back and forth on the piece of paper as I'm putting the clamps on. But just to look at it, it looks pretty good. You wouldn't even notice that I did that. Till later. I didn't have any black paint, so I had to run to Walmart and pick up a can of their grab and go. I used the black onyx and a satin finish. In hindsight, I probably could have used a cheaper can since I'm distressing it anyways. Okay, so before I paint, I wanted to point out a couple things that I would have done differently and a couple things that I kind of messed up on. Whenever you look at something online, you look at a picture of something, you're like, I can build that. I do it all the time. My wife's like, oh, we can buy this. And I'm like, no, I'll build it. And then I try to look at the plans and I try to figure out, well, how do they do this? And some of the stuff you can't see, it'll maybe just a picture of the front of it. You don't know how the dimensions, you're just kind of guessing how it all is. And that's kind of what I did with this. So afterwards, this is almost like a prototype. My wife gets the prototypes all the time, or we'll give the prototype away. And then I know for the next one, another reason why you should build out a cheap pine. So you're not doing this with hardwoods. And then if you wanted to build a second one out of hardwood, go ahead. One thing that I would have done differently or paid more attention to is the doors. The thickness of this 1x2 that I have on here must have been a little bit thicker than 3/4 of an inch because you see how my door is rubbing on the bottom, or I'm sorry, it must have been a little bit shy of 3/4 of an inch. The outside feels flush, but my door is hitting down here and now I have a gap at the top. So it's not really an even reveal. I'm gonna put a magnet in here anyways because I don't want it to just fall open if I have some vegetables leaning against it. But I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention to the width that I'm doing. On the bottom, because it stuck out. This one's great. It has an even reveal. It doesn't push all the way in. Not a big deal. I don't think anybody would notice it. I noticed a lot of stuff, and I'm sure you guys do if you're building stuff. Another thing I made a mistake on was when I measured for the top, I wanted a 1/2 inch overhang all the way around. Well, I didn't account for the door in the front. So now I'm 3/4 of an inch shy in the front. So I could replace this top, but I'm not going to. Because it's going to be under a counter, you're not even really going to notice that. Don't put your, it's going to be under a cabinet. So the cabinet's going to be just a 1/2 inch above it or so, maybe 3/4 inch. You won't even notice that. But in the future, in my plans, I'm going to change it and I'm going to add 3/4 inch. So if you wrote down these dimensions from earlier, you're going to want to add 3/4 inch to the top so that you get an overhang of a 1/2 inch, if that's what you want in yours. In the future, with the shelf, I will put that in as I'm building it instead of like I did. I'm going to tell my wife that I did it on purpose so that it's removable. She'll think I'm a genius. After I paint, I'm going to attach the metal that I bought for right in here. And you'll see what that is coming up after I paint. Look at the bottom of this paint tray. Is this a defect or am I stupid? Is this a special paint tray? You see how one goes and one's welded that way? They're welded on there like that. Watch what happens when you set it down. I blame this on the kids at the factory making TikToks instead of doing their job. I really like this black. I like the way it came out. I almost didn't want to distress it, but my wife had her heart set on it being distressed, so I did. Let me know in the comments what you think. The only problem I started to have was it was so hot in my garage, it got really thick really fast. But it saved me right here because my cat's about to ruin things. Luckily, the heat dried it so fast it didn't get on his fur. We might have had a reverse Pepe Le Pew situation going on. But look what he did to it. Okay, so I didn't paint the inside of it, any part that was going to come in contact with food. But I did paint both sides of the doors. By the time I got to the doors, this paint was so sticky and gummy that it was just looked like I textured the doors. And so that at this point, I was like almost glad I was getting ready to sand it to distress it. So to distress it, I just put down these bench cookies, and they work really well for doing stuff like this. They really hold your work in place, and they're like less than $10 for a 4-pack. I've never used any of the high-end brand ones, but I can't see them working much better than these work for the price. I'll link them in the description if anybody wants to get them. So this paint was pretty thick and durable. It held up under the sanding I was trying to do, so I had to get out the orbital sander to speed this up a little bit. I was kind of impressed with this paint compared to what I used on my cabinets. I really like how sanding this made the grain pop out like that. It looks pretty cool. Anybody else do stupid stuff like this because they're too lazy to get the ladder? Okay, so I bought a whole roll of this mesh fencing from Home Depot. I think it was less than 20 bucks. I think it was almost $10. Don't take my word for it. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't that expensive. But I'm only cutting a 4-inch piece off of it, so hopefully I end up making more of these and use it all up. I wore gloves because the edges were kind of sharp, but it was really easy to cut. I don't even think you need snips like I have. I ended up going back and cutting all the little nubs off, so none of them got like bent up and you scratch yourself reaching into the cabinet trying to pull out a banana. Then I hit it up with some 150 grit sandpaper, and that really took the sharpness out of it. It was pretty smooth after that. So I ended up buying this little pneumatic stapler. It was less than 40 bucks. I think it was 37, and I always wanted one, so I just got it. Nothing fancy. I just stapled this on here. This stapler had a lot of good reviews, but I ended up getting a lot of misfires. I don't know if it's the heat or if it was the metal. You see that one? It's not taken right there. I had to do a practice run, and then it took it. So I don't know what was going on, but it had a lot of good reviews. If you don't want to spend $40 for this, which I wouldn't blame you, they have a handheld one that's like 15 bucks. And if you didn't want to spend that, they have fabric tacks that you can use, and you just hammer those in. They're almost just like thumbtacks, but they're made for this kind of application. All the little metal nubs I cut off that mesh, I'm using this magnet to pick them all up, and it actually worked pretty good. So I got a 2-pack of knobs from Home Depot, and then I just threw them on there real quick. And they look pretty good, just plain black knobs, nothing fancy. So when I put the doors back on, the top one was squeaking really loud, and I think it was from the way I put that piece of paper in there, just that single piece of paper in the middle. Remember what I did earlier? I'm going to tell my wife it's because she made me buy cheap hinges, but just so you and I know, it was probably that piece of paper. So these are the magnets I bought to hold the doors shut. This one goes on the inside, and then you put the little washer-looking one on the door. I attach mine to the side because it's mines. I don't know why I said that. I attach mine to the sides because there's more room to get the screw gun in there. Okay, so I got the magnet on. Now I got to figure out where to put the washer on the door. So I'm going to take the screw, put the washer over top of it because it has an indentation on the backside. So it should sit flush on the magnet. Then I'm going to center it on the magnet. Then I'm just going to put this there and then give it a whack. That stayed in place and it left an indentation. So that's where the center of my screws got to go. Not just a hat rack. I stole that from my wife. You guys ready for the big reveal? Well, take a look at this. Bam! Your little vegetable holder. I got a bunch of bananas in the top. Some potatoes in the bottom. Look, you got a cantaloupe you want to let ripen on the counter? Boom! Whole cantaloupe fits in there. Now for the best tip of the whole video. You fill this thing with potatoes or onions or something like that, and nobody will expect this. Bam! Your ding-dongs are hidden in the onions. Nobody would expect to find your ding-dongs in the onions, guys. You didn't expect a good ding-dong tip at the end of this, but you got one. The unexpected ding-dong tip. Get to building.